The most powerful action you will ever take begins when you stop moving. Think about this for just one breath. Right now, the greatest warriors throughout history were not those who struck fastest, but those who knew when not to strike at all. The most successful leaders were not those who spoke loudest, but those who understood the weight of silence. The most transformative moments in your life did not come from frantic doing, but from conscious being. Your mind has been trained backwards, completely backwards. You have been taught that action means movement, that progress requires speed, that success demands constant motion. But what if everything you believed about taking action was the exact opposite of truth? What if the secret to forcing yourself into action lies not in pushing harder, but in becoming still enough to see clearly? Most people live their entire lives in reaction. They wake up to alarms. They respond to notifications. They chase deadlines. They follow crowds. They mistake motion for progress and busyness for importance. Their days blur together in endless streams of automatic responses to external demands. You are not most people, or at least you don't have to be. The ancient masters understood something your modern world has forgotten. True power comes not from fighting the current, but from understanding where the river flows. Real strength emerges not from tension, but from relaxation. Authentic action springs not from force, but from alignment. Consider the mountain. Does it struggle to maintain its height? Does it strain to hold its ground against the wind? The mountain simply is. And in its being it commands more respect than any amount of human effort ever could. This is your first lesson in forcing yourself to take action. Stop forcing. Your breath knows this truth. Right now, as you hear these words, your breath is taking action without your conscious control. It flows in. It flows out. It sustains your life through effortless rhythm. It never hurries. It never hesitates. It simply continues, moment by moment in perfect timing with your body's needs. When did you last breathe with such natural authority in other areas of your life? The problem is not that you lack the ability to take action. The problem is that you have forgotten how to access your natural state of purposeful movement. You have been conditioned to believe that struggle equals effort, that tension equals strength, that more equals better. But watch a master craftsman at work. Watch how their hands move with precision born from thousands of hours of practice. There is no wasted motion, no excess effort. Every movement serves a purpose. Every creates space for the next perfect action. This is what it means to force yourself to take action through the paradox of stillness. Your mind chatters constantly. Right now, even as you focus on these words, thoughts arise and pass away, like clouds across the sky of your consciousness. Most people identify with these clouds. They believe they are their thoughts. They react to every mental weather pattern as if it were absolute reality. You can choose differently. You can become the sky instead of the clouds. You can observe your thoughts without becoming them. You can witness your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You can experience your circumstances without being controlled by them. This shift from identification to observation is the foundation of all true action. Think of a master archer. Before releasing the arrow, they become completely still. Their breath steadies. Their mind quiets. Their vision sharpens to a single point of focus. In that moment of perfect stillness, they access a power that no amount of muscle tension could provide. The arrow flies true not because of force, but because of alignment. Your life requires the same precision. Every day, you face countless targets, goals to achieve, problems to solve, relationships to nurture, challenges to overcome. But instead of approaching these targets with the focused stillness of a master archer, most people scatter their energy like arrows shot randomly into the wind. They wonder why they miss so often. They wonder why their efforts feel exhausting. They wonder why their results remain inconsistent. The answer lies not in shooting more arrows, but in becoming still enough to aim properly. Your body already knows this wisdom. When you sleep, your body performs the most complex healing and restoration processes without any conscious effort from you. When you digest food, countless chemical reactions occur in perfect coordination without your management. When you walk, thousands of muscle fibers coordinate in precise timing without your micromanagement. Your body demonstrates effortless action constantly. Your mind has simply forgotten how to follow its example. The modern world trains you to live in perpetual emergency mode. Your nervous system remains activated, as if every email were a life-threatening crisis, every deadline a matter of survival, every social interaction a test of your worth. This constant state of fight or flight makes true action impossible. You cannot aim clearly when your hands shake with unnecessary tension. You cannot think creatively when your mind races with anxiety. You cannot respond wisely when your emotions fluctuate like stormy weather. The solution is not to eliminate all tension, but to learn the difference between useful tension and wasteful tension. A guitar string must have the right amount of tension to create beautiful music. Too loose, and it produces no sound. Too tight, and it breaks. The master musician knows exactly how much tension serves the music. Your life requires the same discernment. There is a tension that comes from clarity of purpose. This tension energizes, it focuses, it creates the conditions for inspired action. This is the tension of a sprinter in the starting blocks, coiled not with anxiety but with readiness. Then there is the tension that comes from resistance to what is. This tension exhausts, it scatters. It creates the conditions for reactive behavior. This is the tension of someone fighting against the current instead of using its power. Most people live in the second type of tension and wonder why their lives feel so difficult. The path to effortless action begins with learning to recognize these different qualities of energy within yourself. You must become intimately familiar with the landscape of your inner world. You must develop the sensitivity to feel the difference between fear-based motivation and love-based inspiration. This requires practice, not the kind of practice that involves doing more, but the kind that involves being more present with what already is. Sit quietly for a moment, not to achieve anything, not to become better, not to solve any problems. Simply to observe what is already happening in this moment. Notice your breath. How does it move? Where do you feel it most clearly? Does it flow freely or does it feel restricted? Notice your body. Where do you sense tension? Where do you feel relaxation? Can you allow both without trying to change either? Notice your thoughts. What themes repeat? What stories does your mind tell about your past, about your future? Can you observe these thoughts as mental activity rather than absolute truth? Notice your emotions. What do you feel right now? Can you name it specifically? Can you locate where you sense it in your body? Can you experience it fully without being overwhelmed by it? This simple practice of conscious observation is the foundation of all masterful action. When you can observe your inner landscape clearly, you gain the ability to choose your responses rather than simply reacting from habit. Most people are not aware they have a choice. They experience an emotion and immediately act from it. They think a thought and immediately believe it. They feel an impulse and immediately follow it. This unconscious reactivity keeps them trapped in cycles of ineffective behavior. You can break free from these cycles through the cultivation of conscious awareness. Think of a skilled martial artist. When an opponent attacks, they do not meet force with force. They do not react with panic or anger. They observe the incoming energy, feel its direction and intensity, and use that information to respond with perfect timing and minimal effort. The opponent's attack becomes the source of their own defeat. This same principle applies to every challenge in your life. The obstacle becomes the way when you learn to work with energy rather than against it. Your anger can become fuel for positive change when you learn to channel it consciously rather than expressing it reactively. Your fear can become heightened awareness when you learn to feel it fully rather than avoiding it or being paralyzed by it. Your sadness can become deep compassion when you learn to honor it rather than numbing it or wallowing in it. Your confusion can become clarity when you learn to sit with uncertainty rather than rushing toward false answers. Every emotion carries information. Every sensation provides guidance. Every thought offers insight, but only when you approach them with conscious observation rather than unconscious reaction. The ancient tradition spoke of this as the difference between being asleep and being awake. Most people walk through life in a kind of waking sleep, reacting automatically to whatever circumstances present themselves. They live as if they were puppets controlled by external forces. But you have the capacity to wake up. You have the ability to become conscious of the strings that have been pulling you. And once you see them clearly, you can choose whether to follow them or cut them entirely. This awakening does not happen through dramatic external changes. It happens through subtle internal shifts that gradually transform how you experience everything. The sun does not force its way across the sky. It simply continues its natural path, and the entire world organizes around its rhythm. The seasons do not struggle to change. They unfold according to cosmic timing that encompasses cycles far larger than human impatience. Your transformation can follow the same organic pattern. Instead of forcing change through willpower alone, you can align with the natural intelligence that already exists within you. This intelligence knows when to act and when to wait. It knows when to speak and when to remain silent. It knows when to push forward and when to step back. It knows when to hold on and when to let go. But this intelligence can only guide you when you become still enough to hear its of your deeper wisdom does not shout. It does not compete with the noise of external demands or internal chatter. It speaks in whispers. It communicates through subtle feelings. It offers guidance through gentle intuitions that arise in moments of quiet presence. Most people miss this guidance entirely because they never create space to receive it. They fill every moment with activity, every silence with sound, every with distraction. They wonder why they feel so disconnected from their own sense of purpose and direction. The remedy is simpler than they imagine, but it requires a kind of courage they have forgotten they possess. It requires the courage to be still in a world that demands constant motion. It requires the courage to listen inward when everyone else is shouting opinions outward. It requires the courage to trust your own inner knowing when external authorities claim to have all the answers. This courage is not the loud, dramatic kind celebrated in movies. It is quiet. It is patient. It is consistent. It is the courage of a seed that splits open in darkness, trusting that light exists even when it cannot yet be seen. Your willingness to cultivate stillness is an act of rebellion against a culture that profits from your distraction. Your commitment to conscious observation is a declaration of independence from systems that require your unconscious compliance. Your choice to respond rather than react is a reclamation of personal power that no external force can take away. But this power must be claimed moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. No one can give it to you. No technique can automatically install it. No teacher can force you to access it. It emerges naturally when you create the right conditions within yourself. These conditions are simpler than your complicated mind wants to believe. Breathe consciously, feel completely, observe clearly, choose wisely. This is the entire path condensed into its essential elements. Everything else is commentary and elaboration on these four fundamental practices. Your breath connects you to the present moment. When you breathe consciously, you cannot be lost in past regrets or future anxieties. You anchor yourself in the only time where actual life occurs. Your feelings provide constant feedback about your alignment with truth. When something feels genuinely right, your body relaxes and opens. When something feels genuinely wrong, your body contracts and closes. This internal guidance system is more reliable than any external advice. Your observation reveals the difference between story and reality. Most suffering comes from believing thoughts about circumstances rather than dealing directly with circumstances themselves. When you observe clearly, you see what is actually happening rather than what your mind thinks is happening. Your choices determine the quality of your experience. Every moment offers multiple possible responses. The response you choose shapes not only what happens next, but who you become in the process. These are not abstract concepts to think about. They are practical tools to use right now in whatever situation you currently face. Are you breathing consciously as you hear these words? Can you feel the air entering and leaving your body? Can you sense the between inhalation and exhalation? Are you feeling completely? What emotions arise as you consider these ideas? Where do you sense them in your body? Can you allow them to be present without trying to change them? Are you observing clearly? What thoughts occur as you listen? Can you notice them arising and passing away? Can you distinguish between the content of thoughts and the awareness that perceives them? Are you choosing wisely? How do you want to respond to this information? Will you dismiss it as impractical philosophy, or will you experiment with applying it immediately? Your answers to these questions matter less than your willingness to ask them. The simple act of conscious inquiry begins to shift you from automatic reactivity toward intentional responsiveness. This shift is subtle but profound. It is the difference between being lived by life and living life consciously. It is the difference between being a victim of circumstances and being a conscious participant in your own experience. The transformation begins now, not someday when conditions become perfect. It begins with your next breath, your next choice, your next moment of conscious awareness. The mountain does not wait for better weather to stand tall. The river does not wait for a smoother path to flow toward the sea. The tree does not wait for ideal soil to sink its roots deep. They work with whatever conditions exist, finding ways to thrive through alignment with natural principles rather than resistance to present circumstances. You have this same capacity. You have always had it. You have simply forgotten how to access it, because you were taught to look everywhere except within yourself for the source of your power. The source has been there all along, waiting patiently for your recognition. It does not diminish with neglect. It does not disappear with misuse. It remains constant, like the sun behind clouds, ready to illuminate your path the moment you remember to look up. This recognition changes everything without changing anything. Your external circumstances may remain identical, but your relationship to them transforms completely. Problems become opportunities. Obstacles become teachers. Challenges become invitations to grow stronger and wiser. The same life that once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable. The same relationships that once drained your energy begin to offer opportunities for deeper connection. The same work that once felt meaningless begins to serve as a vehicle for expressing your unique gifts. Nothing external has changed. Everything internal has shifted. This is the paradox of stillness. Through becoming more still, you become more powerful. Through forcing less, you accomplish more. Through trying to control less, you influence more. The ancient masters knew this secret. The great leaders throughout history embodied this principle. The most effective people in every field have learned to work with this natural law rather than against it. Now it is your turn to claim this inheritance that belongs to you by birthright. The power to take action from stillness. The ability to respond from wisdom rather than react from habit. The capacity to shape your life through conscious choice rather than unconscious repetition. The next part of this training will show you exactly how to develop this capacity in practical, measurable ways. You will learn the specific distinctions that separate reaction from response, and you will discover practices that build your ability to choose wisely under pressure. But first, you must fully understand what you have just learned. The foundation of all masterful action is conscious stillness. The source of all wise choices is present moment awareness. The beginning of all authentic power is the willingness to observe what is without immediately trying to change it. Take this understanding with you into your next interaction, your next challenge, your next opportunity to choose. Notice what happens when you before reacting. Feel what changes when you breathe consciously in difficult moments. Observe how differently you see situations when you step back from automatic thinking patterns. The laboratory for this practice is your daily life. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to respond rather than react. Every problem becomes a chance to access wisdom rather than worry. Every moment becomes a choice point where you can either repeat old patterns or create new possibilities. This is how you force yourself to take action through the power of conscious stillness. Not by pushing harder but by aligning deeper. Not by trying more but by being more present. Not by controlling more but by trusting the intelligence that already knows exactly what needs to happen next. The path continues. The practice deepens. The transformation unfolds naturally when you stop forcing it and start allowing it to emerge from the stillness that has always been your true source of power. Between every stimulus and your response lies a space. In that space lives your freedom. In that space exists your power. In that space you become the master of your own experience rather than its victim. Most people have never seen this space. They experience something and immediately react. Someone speaks harshly and anger flares instantly. A problem arises and panic follows without an opportunity appears, and doubt crushes it before consideration begins. This automatic reaction is not your fault. You were trained this way. Your family modeled it. Your school reinforced it. Your culture rewards it. Speed over wisdom. Quickness over quality, immediate response over thoughtful consideration. But what serves survival in genuine emergencies destroys mastery in daily life. The difference between reaction and response is the difference between slavery and freedom. When you react, you are controlled by whatever triggers you. When you respond, you control how you engage with what triggers you. Think about the last time someone criticized your work. What happened in your body first? Did your chest tighten? Did your jaw clench? Did your breath become shallow? These physical changes occurred before you even formed a thought about what was said. This is reaction. Your nervous system activated a defense program that evolved millions of years ago to keep your ancestors alive when faced with immediate physical threats. But your boss's feedback is not a saber-toothed tiger, and your automatic fight or flight response rarely produces the results you actually want. Response begins where reaction ends. Response starts with recognition that you have a choice about how to engage with whatever is happening. Response requires the cultivation of that sacred space between what occurs and how you choose to meet it. This space can be expanded. Through practice, that gap between stimulus and response can grow from a split second to several seconds to entire minutes. The longer you can maintain conscious awareness in that gap, the more options become available to you. Consider water. When water encounters a rock in its path, it does not attack the obstacle. It does not become frustrated or angry. It does not give up and flow backward. Water responds by finding the most efficient path around, over, or through the obstacle. It maintains its essential nature while adapting its form to work with whatever conditions exist. This is the essence of responsive living. You maintain your core values and authentic self while adapting your approach to work skillfully with whatever circumstances arise. Most people do the opposite. They abandon their values under pressure and rigidly maintain unsuccessful strategies long after those approaches have proven ineffective. They become reactive in their principles and stubborn in their methods. Mastery requires the reverse. Flexible in method, unwavering in principle. Your breath is your most reliable teacher in this practice. Right now, notice what happens to your breathing when you recall a recent stressful situation. Does it become shallow? Does it speed up? Does it become irregular? This change in breathing is always the first sign that you have shifted from response to reaction. Your breath becomes an early warning system that alerts you to the moment when conscious choice becomes available. When you notice your breath changing, you have found the gateway to that sacred space. Instead of continuing the automatic pattern, you can choose to breathe consciously. This simple choice interrupts the reaction cycle and creates the possibility for a more skillful response. But interrupting reaction is only the beginning. True mastery involves cultivating the qualities that allow you to respond from wisdom rather than habit. These qualities must be developed deliberately, like a musician practicing scales or an athlete building strength. Presence means being fully here, in this moment, with what is actually happening, rather than with your thoughts about what is happening. When you are present, you can perceive situations clearly instead of through the distorted lens of past experiences or future projections. Most people live in a constant state of partial attention. They are physically here but mentally elsewhere. They miss crucial information because they are not fully available to receive it. They make poor decisions because they are responding to imaginary scenarios rather than actual circumstances. Presence is not a mystical state reserved for advanced practitioners. It is a practical skill that improves everything you do. When you are fully present during conversations, people feel heard and understood. When you are present while working, your efficiency and creativity increase dramatically. When you are present during challenges, solutions become visible that were previously hidden. The cultivation of presence begins with training your attention. Your attention is like a muscle that grows stronger with exercise. Every time you notice your mind wandering and gently bring it back to the present moment, you strengthen your capacity for sustained awareness. This training can happen anywhere, anytime. While washing dishes, can you feel the warm water on your hands and notice the sensation of cleaning each plate? While walking, can you sense your feet touching the ground and feel the rhythm of your movement? While listening to someone speak, can you hear not just their words but the tone, pace, and emotion behind those words? These simple practices build the foundation for presence in more challenging situations. If you cannot maintain awareness while performing routine tasks, you will not be able to access conscious choice during moments of stress or conflict. The second quality essential for responsive living is emotional mastery. This does not mean suppressing or controlling emotions. It means learning to feel emotions fully without being overwhelmed by them, and learning to use emotional energy skillfully rather than being used by it. Emotions are not problems to be solved, they are information to be received. Anger tells you that a boundary has been crossed. Fear tells you that something important is at risk. Sadness tells you that something meaningful has been lost. Joy tells you that you are aligned with what matters most to you. When you learn to receive this information without immediately acting on the emotion, you gain access to the wisdom each feeling contains. You can then choose how to use that energy in service of your deepest values rather than in service of temporary impulses. Think of emotions like weather. Sometimes storms arise. Sometimes sunshine breaks through clouds. Sometimes fog obscures your vision. A skilled sailor learns to work with all weather conditions rather than only sailing on perfect days. Your emotional weather changes constantly. The key is not to control the weather but to develop the skills necessary to navigate safely regardless of conditions. This means learning to maintain your course even when emotional storms create turbulence. The practice begins with learning to name emotions precisely. Instead of simply feeling bad, can you identify whether you are experiencing frustration, disappointment, sadness, fear, or anger? Each emotion carries different information and calls for different responses. Next, practice locating emotions in your body. Where do you feel anger? Where does sadness live? Where does joy express itself physically? This embodied awareness helps you work with emotional energy before it becomes overwhelming. Finally, experiment with breathing consciously while feeling intense emotions. Instead of trying to make the emotion go away, breathe with it. Allow it to move through you without resistance. Notice how emotions change naturally when you neither suppress them nor indulge them, but simply allow them to be present while maintaining conscious breathing. The third quality necessary for mastery is the ability to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot control. This ancient wisdom appears simple but proves extraordinarily difficult to apply consistently. You cannot control other people's actions, but you can control your responses to their actions. You cannot control external circumstances, but you can control how you interpret and engage with those circumstances. You cannot control outcomes, but you can control the quality of effort you bring to your endeavors. Most people waste enormous amounts of energy trying to control things that lie outside their influence, while neglecting the things that are completely within their power. They argue with reality instead of working skillfully with reality. The weather will do what weather does. Other people will choose what they choose. The economy will fluctuate according to forces far beyond your individual influence. Your job is not to control these external factors, but to position yourself to respond effectively regardless of what they do. This requires a fundamental shift in how you define success. Instead of measuring success by external outcomes alone, you must learn to measure success by the quality of your responses to whatever outcomes arise. Did you maintain your integrity under pressure? Did you treat others with respect even when they were disrespectful to you? Did you continue moving toward your values even when obstacles appeared? These internal measures of success remain within your control regardless of external circumstances. When you anchor your sense of accomplishment to factors you can actually influence, you become much more resilient and much more consistently effective. The ancient warriors understood this principle deeply. They prepared extensively for battle, but they did not attach their worth to victory or defeat. They measured themselves by whether they fought with honor, courage, and skill. The outcome of individual battles mattered less than the cultivation of character that would serve them throughout their entire lives. Your daily challenges offer the same opportunity for character development. Every difficult conversation becomes a chance to practice speaking truthfully with compassion. Every setback becomes an opportunity to demonstrate resilience. Every success becomes a moment to practice gratitude and humility. When you approach life this way, you cannot fail. You can only learn, grow, and become more skilled at responding wisely to whatever life presents. The fourth quality essential for inner mastery is the cultivation of what the ancients called beginner's mind. This means approaching each situation with fresh eyes rather than through the accumulated assumptions of past experiences. Most people see new situations through old patterns. They encounter a problem and immediately apply solutions that worked in previous circumstances without considering whether those solutions fit current conditions. They meet new people and immediately categorize them according to familiar types without remaining open to who those people actually are in this moment. This habitual pattern matching saves mental energy, but often produces poor results. The world changes constantly. What worked yesterday may not work today. Who someone was last year may not reflect who they have become now. Beginner's mind means staying curious rather than jumping to conclusions. It means asking questions rather than making assumptions. It means remaining open to possibilities that your past experience has not yet revealed. This quality proves especially important when facing repeated challenges. If the same type of problem keeps arising in your life, your habitual responses are clearly not resolving the underlying issue. Beginner's mind allows you to see these familiar situations with fresh perspective and discover new approaches that might prove more effective. The cultivation of beginner's mind requires intellectual humility. You must become comfortable with not knowing, with uncertainty, with the possibility that your current understanding is incomplete. This comfort with not knowing creates space for genuine learning and creative problem solving. Children naturally embody beginner's mind. They ask endless questions. They experiment fearlessly. They remain fascinated by things adults take for granted. While you cannot return to childhood innocence, you can reclaim childlike curiosity and wonder. How long has it been since you asked someone a question because you were genuinely curious about their answer rather than because you wanted to make a point? When did you last approach a familiar task with the attention you would bring to something completely new? How often do you admit that you don't know something instead of pretending to understand? These simple practices help maintain the freshness of perception that allows you to respond appropriately to what is actually happening rather than to what you expect to happen based on past experience. The integration of these four qualities minus presence, emotional mastery, focus on what you can control, and beginner's mind creates the foundation for consistently choosing response over reaction. But like any skill, this integration requires practice under increasingly challenging conditions. Start with low-stakes situations. When someone cuts in front of you in line, can you notice your automatic reaction and choose a conscious response instead? When technology malfunctions, can you maintain your composure and address the problem systematically rather than becoming frustrated? As you build confidence in simple situations, gradually apply these skills to more significant challenges. When someone criticizes your work, can you listen for useful feedback while maintaining your self-worth? When unexpected obstacles threaten important goals, can you adapt your strategy while maintaining your commitment? The master knows that every interaction offers an opportunity to practice these essential skills. Every day provides multiple chances to choose wisdom over habit, patience over reactivity, curiosity over assumption. Your life becomes your training ground. Your relationships become your practice partners. Your challenges become your teachers. Nothing is wasted when you approach experiences with the intention to grow rather than simply to succeed. This shift in perspective transforms the meaning of difficulty. Problems are no longer inconveniences to be avoided, but opportunities to develop greater mastery. Conflicts are no longer threats to be feared, but chances to practice skillful communication. Failures are no longer sources of shame, but information that guides you toward more effective approaches. The ancient traditions spoke of this as the warrior's path, not the path of someone who fights against life, but the path of someone who develops the skills necessary to engage with life fully, courageously, and wisely. The warrior does not seek out battles, but when battles arise, the warrior meets them with presence, skill, and honor. The warrior does not avoid difficulty, but when difficulty appears, the warrior uses it as an opportunity to demonstrate and further develop inner strength. You can walk this path regardless of your circumstances, your background, or your past mistakes. The path begins wherever you are right now, with whatever challenges currently face you. The only requirement is the willingness to approach your life as a conscious participant rather than as a passive victim of random events. This willingness itself is a choice that must be renewed moment by moment. No one can make this choice for you. No external authority can force you to claim your power to respond consciously. No technique can automatically install these capabilities within you. But when you do make this choice consistently, when you do claim your power to respond rather than react, when you do develop these essential qualities through daily practice, something remarkable happens. Your entire experience of life shifts from something that happens to you to something you participate in consciously and creatively. The same external world that once felt overwhelming begins to feel workable. The same relationships that once drained your energy begin to offer opportunities for authentic connection. The same work that once felt meaningless begins to serve as a vehicle for expressing your unique gifts and making a positive difference. This transformation happens not through changing your circumstances, but through changing your relationship to your circumstances. When you master the art of conscious response, you discover that you already possess everything necessary to create a meaningful, fulfilling life, regardless of what external conditions exist. The practice continues to deepen. The next phase of this training will show you how to apply these principles to the specific challenge of transforming limiting beliefs and unconscious patterns that have been sabotaging your efforts. You will learn how true change happens from the inside out, and why external modifications without internal transformation always prove temporary and superficial. Your greatest enemy is not external opposition. Your greatest enemy is not lack of resources or unfavorable circumstances. Your greatest enemy is the in your head that tells you why you cannot succeed, why you are not worthy, why others are better qualified, why the timing is wrong. This speaks with your accent. It uses your vocabulary. It knows your history intimately. It presents itself as rational, practical, protective. But this is not you. It is a collection of old programming, inherited fears, and outdated survival strategies that once served a purpose, but now limit your potential. Most people mistake this internal critic for truth. They believe every thought that arises in their mind belongs to them and deserves their attention. They argue with this, fight against it, or surrender to its pronouncements without questioning its authority. What if you could learn to observe this mental activity with the same detachment you might observe weather patterns? What if you could recognize limiting thoughts as temporary mental events rather than permanent truths about your capabilities? The transformation from internal slavery to internal freedom begins with this recognition. You are not your thoughts, you are the awareness that perceives thoughts. You are not your emotions, you are the consciousness that experiences emotions. You are not your circumstances. You are the being who chooses how to respond to circumstances. This distinction changes everything. When you know yourself as the observer rather than the observed, you gain the power to choose which thoughts deserve your attention and which deserve to be dismissed. You develop the ability to feel emotions fully without being controlled by them. You learn to engage with circumstances creatively rather than simply enduring them. But this knowing cannot remain merely intellectual. It must become embodied wisdom that guides your daily choices and responses. The gap between understanding and implementation is where most people lose their way. Knowledge without application produces frustration. You know what you should do, but you continue doing what you have always done. You understand the principles, but your behavior remains unchanged. You recognize the patterns, but you feel powerless to break them. This gap exists because transformation requires more than mental agreement. It requires a fundamental shift in how you experience yourself and your relationship to life. This shift happens through practice, not through thinking about practice. Consider how you learned to walk. You did not read books about balance and locomotion. You did not attend lectures on muscular coordination. You fell down repeatedly, got back up, and gradually developed the ability to move upright through the world. Your body learned through direct experience what your mind could never have figured out through analysis alone. The same principle applies to inner transformation. Your new way of being must be practiced into existence. You must fall down repeatedly, get back up, and gradually develop the ability to respond from wisdom rather than react from habit. This practice begins each morning before you engage with external demands. The quality of your morning determines the quality of your entire day. If you begin in reactive mode, checking messages and responding to other people's priorities, you start from a position of weakness that influences every subsequent interaction. Instead, claim the first hour of your day for yourself. This is not selfish. This is strategic. You cannot give what you do not possess. You cannot respond from calm if you have not cultivated calm. You cannot access wisdom if you have not created space for wisdom to arise. The morning practice needs no elaborate ritual or extensive time commitment. 15 minutes of conscious breathing while setting your intention for the day will transform your experience more than hours of reactive activity. 5 minutes of gratitude while feeling appreciation in your body will shift your energy more than any external motivation technique. You become what the world desperately needs. Someone who has learned to remain centered in the storm. Someone who responds from love rather than fear. Someone who sees possibilities where others see only problems. Someone who trusts in the fundamental goodness of life, even when evidence suggests otherwise. This is your true calling. Not to become perfect, but to become fully yourself. Not to eliminate all problems, but to transform your relationship with problems. Not to control life, but to dance with life so skillfully that the distinction between dancer and dance disappears. The path that began with learning to force yourself to take action through stillness has led you to the recognition that the most powerful action you can take is to become who you truly are. When you align with your authentic nature, right action flows naturally. When you trust your inner wisdom, correct choices become obvious. When you embody presence and compassion, life responds by offering you endless opportunities to express these qualities. This is the ultimate paradox and the final teaching. The best way to force yourself to take action is to stop forcing entirely and start flowing with the natural intelligence that has always been guiding you toward your highest potential. The action you thought you needed to force was already happening through you, the moment you remembered to trust yourself completely. Your transformation is complete not when you achieve some imagined state of perfection, but when you fully accept and embody who you already are beneath all the stories, fears, and limitations you believed about yourself. The person you are becoming has been waiting patiently within you all along, ready to emerge the moment you stop forcing change and start allowing truth. This is your invitation. This is your moment. This is your choice to make right now and in every moment that follows. Will you continue forcing against life, or will you begin flowing with it? Will you keep reacting from old patterns, or will you start responding from new wisdom? Will you remain a victim of circumstances, or will you claim your power as a conscious creator of your own experience? The answer lies not in your thoughts about these questions, but in your next breath, your next choice, your next opportunity to demonstrate who you truly are when you stop pretending to be anything less than magnificent.